Kia ora again. Welcome to our third segment today on keeping everyone safe and well in the home. We've got Darren here from St John. He's a first aid trainer, and Anne-Marie here from PlunketLine. So just wanting to talk this segment on a couple of the things that we haven't yet covered in our first two segments, and that is really reminding you parents and caregivers out there, you know your little people better than anyone. You know, parents know their baby or their child best. Okay, no one can detract from that, and the information you have about your child or what you know is their normal is really important information for the ambulance person who responds to them, for the doctor, for the nurses, anybody that you need to share information with about your child. Okay. So, and you would agree, you know,
absolutely. No, I'm a parent myself, and it's really hard when you're trying to explain all this myriad of stuff out of your mouth to professionals, and I think the best message is, as you've just said, is parents know their children best. Trust your instincts. Keep calm. Yeah. Overall, prevention.
Can't underestimate that.
No, absolutely.
And sometimes we feel anything but calm.
Yes.
But because we are the window to our little people's world. How we react to things or respond to things is how they might do so as well. And if we are distressed internally and we show that externally, that our child will respond in the same way.
Very much so. And look, you know, when we were talking about children knows best, and when children are actually unwell, we know how energetic our children can be. We know what their normal sleep pattern is. We know how easy it is to wake our own children up, or if they're grumpy in the morning and they're slow to come round regardless of their age. And I think any behaviour outside of the norm is something that really should be seek further advice. And that's where PlunketLine really does come in.
Because we'll ask you, you know, what usually happens, you know, for your child when this happens, or how do you think, did you expect him to respond? And let's get a benchmark of normal for you, and let's see what's happening and try and work a plan together.
And remember, you know, when children are sleeping, it's fairly easy to wake children up with a good shake. And certainly from our perspective, if you are trying to establish whether your baby or your child is normally sleeping, a good tip would be to give your child a gentle shake, talk to them quite loudly.
Sort of, so when we say shake, you know, sort of, you know, a shake that's like a touch.
Very much so.
Like a vibrating touch, just to sort of say, here we are, sweetheart, you're going to wake up now, you know, and sort of just touch them in a way that applies, you know, some gentle pressure.
Could always squeeze the toes. Cause a little bit of a reaction.
Especially if you're worried that they're unresponsive.
Doing
something like, you know, gently but firmly squeezing a toe will work. If they're awake, they're gonna, it hurt, or they'll cry.
Indeed.
We're not trying to inflict pain, but we're trying to understand the emergency that we have before us. So, you know, if they're to vomit, we often get concerns when parents say, what if my child vomits? And I'm not right there with them as they vomit, you know, and I'm worried that they might choke on their vomit or swallow it. And so what would, you know, like, can we recap?
So yes, if we have baby here who's got vomit in the mouth and the parent comes along, one of the easy things that we can do is to simply roll the baby over on the side using maybe a little finger and scooping out any vomit that you can actually see. So don't go any further than you can see. Scooping out any vomit. And remembering, as I said earlier on, if baby is coughing and spluttering and choking, whilst I appreciate that people want to rub and help baby get this stuff up, it's really important to remember that the difference between a partially obstructed airway and a completely obstructed airway. We don't want this child with a partially obstructed airway to then suddenly inhale this in again and cause complete obstruction. So the key message here is, if in doubt, roll the baby over on the side. You're never going to cause any harm. Remember to support the head all the way through. And if there's any altered or change in level of consciousness, to remember to call 111 for ambulance as soon as you possibly can.
Straight away. So the other thing that, you know, parents often worry about is drowning, or swallowing of water, too much water in the bath, you know. Or they slipped under. I grabbed him straight away, but you know, he seems, I'm really worried. What do I do?
So children and babies can drown in really small amounts of water, which is why we said earlier on not to leave a baby unattended. It doesn't take much. So our key message here is prevention.
Yeah.
And keep an eye on your baby at all times. If at any stage that you find your baby or a young person face down in water, our natural instinct will be to take over and to bring the baby out of the water.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Any altered level of consciousness, so if you can't wake your baby up and they're breathing normally, remembering, as I said earlier, if you're unresponsive and breathing normally, place baby on the side, call an ambulance. And if the baby is unresponsive again and is not breathing normally, is to remember to perform CPR, and that's simply 2 fingers in the middle of the chest, push down hard and fast 30 times, and give a couple of breaths in the mouth, just hard enough to make the chest rise, and absolutely call 111 for ambulance.
Yeah.
You know, with any episodes of drowning, with any reaction whatsoever, absolutely call 111 for ambulance, because the effects of drowning can actually happen later on. So it is always better to be safe than sorry. So drowning is any instance where somebody has been submerged in water of any depth. Absolutely.
Okay. And you know, we can role model the good things that we want to be role modeling for our children by talking to our little ones who are understanding about why we keep medicines away and safe, and why we, you know, safe from us, and so when we don't need them, they're not accessible, because when they're not needed, they're no longer useful but dangerous to us. Yeah. And it's explaining why we do things and how we keep safe. And I mean, you know, the crossing the road, you know, holding hands and waiting and all those things. It's so just learning to instruct and give rationales for why we do things the way we do them in our home or in our family, or when we're at daycare or when we're at school. It all helps to sort of for them to understand and continue those behaviours.
It does, and I think normalising this behaviour. You know, when you take some Panadol for a headache, and your normal behaviour is to put it back in its packet and then put it back in the medicine cabinet if you've got one, or absolutely out of reach for children. But also remembering, you know, even the safety twist-off caps, they're not foolproof.
Some children are very clever.
Very clever indeed.
Yeah.
So a lot of poisoning occurs in the family home with everyday medicines.
Yes.
An awful lot. So it is about good behaviour. Any kind of medicine off the table, in the medicine cabinet, absolutely out of reach, high cupboard in the kitchen if that's where you...
And visitors and handbags, you know, who knows what's in a visitor's handbag.
Indeed.
And keeping our own out of sight. You know, like they're the things that, you know, little children will crawl into, and anything that goes in the mouth can be dangerous. Keeping our anything with a button battery, like a thermometer, not able to be played with by a child, you know, or that the button battery is certainly not accessible to the child for any of the toys that have them, you know, because a button battery is a medical emergency within 30 minutes, isn't it?
Any time that you believe a child is swallowed a button battery, even when there are absolutely no symptoms, it is you absolutely do need to get this checked out, because the effects of that battery leaking are horrific.
Yeah. And so, you know, if we were to think, you know, what can I do that's best? You know, you mentioned that you've just got a new dog. Puppy.
Yes.
And that you've done what we would recommend parents do. You crawled around your home at dog level, or at baby's crawling level.
It's absolutely essential, you know, because then you'll see your plugs, then you'll see underneath your coffee table. And hey, I'm on my second pair of glasses after my dog jumped up on the coffee table, and it's only a small one. We don't see a lot of these things happening if we are standing up there. You don't see where you just put something down absent-mindedly, or as we were talking about earlier, the coffee cup that you put down because your phone rings or your other child is crying. An awful lot of things absolutely get at that person's height.
Because parents are busy. We are, you know, like it's busy and it's full on, you know, with little people around. And you do have to have eyes in the back of your head. And because we haven't, we just have to try and think ahead for what they may be able to get into. Because sometimes too, you know, what they usually don't have access to is very interesting. And they will try.
Oh, always try.
Yeah. And so, you know, having safety catches on windows that they might climb on a chair to get to a window, and then there's a big drop to outside, knowing that they can't ever climb out that window or open it, you know, that they're, so it's just thinking ahead, what would happen if. But let them play outside and supervise their play where you need to. And, you know, that's not to say that they shouldn't be able to do some of the things we all did as children.
Indeed.
And risk take and
Yes.
all those things. So, but it's, you know, within sort of, you know, trying to keep them as safe as possible. Yeah.
I guess if we're talking about playing outside, you know, one of the things that we really should mention is be mindful of reversing the vehicles down driveways wherever possible, driving forward instead of reversing.
Yes.
It's some pretty sad events over the years in New Zealand, eh?
There's lots. And so, you know, like if you're driving and reversing, you know, like you check the driveway for the children, because sometimes, you know, our pets play under the, you know, lie under the car because it's warm, but sometimes our children have crawled under the car maybe to find a toy or rescue a ball. And if we've had any delay between getting in the car and driving away, it's really important that we know that our driveways and our properties are clear of little people whenever we're in a vehicle. So just as a quick summary, who do we call on when we need help?
Right, so call 111 for ambulance if it appears that it's life-threatening and an emergency.
Yep.
You have options for 0800 poison for the poison centre where you suspect poison.
Yep.
You could consider Healthline on 0800 611 116. And of course, we have our very own PlunketLine on 933 922.
Perfect. So keep safe, everyone. We're here for you. Thank you for being with us today, and thanks, Darren.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.